Have you ever been fired for going off on a customer at work? Story 1. I worked at Disneyland in the ticket booths. If you're an annual pass holder and you're on the monthly contract, Disney takes automatic payments from your credit card. If your card expires or otherwise has to be changed and you don't call to put a new card on file, the auto payments stop and your pass freezes. No big deal. Disney doesn't hit you with fees or penalties. You simply call or come to the booth and we handle it right then and there. Zippity-doo-dah and in you go. One day, I got a middle-aged couple whose passes froze. The man was upset and ready to talk about it. A common question from guests is, don't you send out late notices? No, Disney doesn't, because they're not practical, and again, there are no penalties anyway. Just come see us and we'll straighten you out. The man says to me in a disgusted tone, you don't send notices when a pass freezes? How does that work? I said, well, when you receive your credit card statement and you see that a recurring charge is not present on it, you can expect the service related to the recurring charge to be interrupted, and that it must be related to your card having been replaced recently. The wife smiled. The man's face reddened, and he leaned in and barked, "Get your supervisor. I want to talk to somebody smart." To my shame, I said, of course, would you like someone smart enough to stay aware of their credit card use, or merely smart enough to read the contracts they sign? My booth lead happened to come over as soon as she heard supervisor, so she was standing behind me when I said the emotional thing. It isn't how I wanted to go out. I was already 5 days away from leaving for a new job, but I looked at it as a vicariously cathartic mic drop goodbye to my fellow cast members. For them, it was a thrill. Don't be ashamed. The only reason service people get treated terribly by jerks is because they think they can get away with it. My dad always told me that the best way to deal with a bully is to punch them in the nose, and that's what you did. Good work, friend. Good thing you were already on your way out, because that guy needed to be put in his place. Story 2. I used to cut hair. I was cutting a lady's hair when a child of another lady waiting started running around the shop. I told the child several times to go sit with her mother and asked her mother to please keep her child seated next to her. Well, in the middle of cutting around my client's ear, the child ran into my work area, ran into me, and almost caused me to cut my client. I looked at the child and firmly said, "You need to go sit down with your mother now." Well, her mom didn't like that and came running back to me and yelled, "Don't tell my child what to do. I'm her parent." I responded with, "Then act like it." She glared at me, grabbed her child, and stormed out. Everyone in the shop was relieved the child had left. A few days later, the owner came and tried to fire me for it, but luckily, there were enough other stylists and clients that came to my defense about the danger of the situation, and I only got a write-up. What did they put on your write-up? Employee tried to maintain the safety of our store, thus a write-up was needed? Exactly. I felt the same way, and so did my coworkers, but the owner thought that telling someone then act like it was too rude, so I got written up for being rude to a customer. Nothing ever came of it, and a few weeks later I got promoted to assistant manager. It's unfortunate that the owner penalized you for doing the right thing, but it's nice to hear that your colleagues and clients had your back. Good on you for standing up for yourself and the safety of your workplace. Story 3. Many a year ago, I worked at a home improvement store called Menards. I was a cart pusher, which was nice as I was outside all the time. Anyway, we gather around 25 to 30 shopping carts together and push them up to the entrance where they are stored inside. Now, to get them there, we do have to cross the main drive of the parking lot in front of the store. We always stop and let customers drive by. So as I was pushing the carts up, I stopped because I saw a guy in a pretty nice SUV. He actually stopped in front of the entrance. Maybe he dropped someone off. I do not know. So I waited to see if he was going to drive off, and he then looked at me and waved me across, looking like he wanted to finish a call he had gotten or something. So I waved back and started pushing the carts across. I was on the other side when something clipped me across the shoulder blades. It stung somewhat and pushed me forward, and at the same time I heard glass shatter. I turned around and the guy in the SUV had clipped me with his side view mirror. It had swung closed and shattered the window and the door, and I'm just standing there wide-eyed. 2 seconds later, the guy got out of the car swearing up a storm at me about how I'm a low-life piece of crap and how I'm going to pay for a new window and how I'm not going to get anywhere in life because I broke his window. Now, I'm the type of person that if I'm the reason, I'll take the blame and fix the problem. But this guy hit me. I blew up on him for about 5 minutes before a manager finally had the guts to come over and pull me away. I didn't have to pay for a new window as it was on video, but I lost my job because we are not supposed to yell and cuss at the customer. That's BS. The minute someone hits you with their car, they are no longer the customer. They are that a-hole who just hit me with their car. I would have called the police the second he hit me and had the nerve to yell at me. Wow, I'm really glad he didn't seriously injure you. Whatever you said, I'm sure he had it coming. Story 4. I used to work in the restaurant industry as a chef. We had a closed kitchen in this particular spot, so customers couldn't see what was being done in the kitchen. It was nice because we could listen to music and joke around without having to worry. Anyways, one day I was alone on the line and had a server come to me and said a customer wanted to give me his compliments. No problem, I put on my nicer jacket and went out to say hi. The customer thanked me and then told me to come in closer because he had a secret. I was like, okay, sure. So I leaned in a little, he motions me closer, I move in a little more. This guy then goes, "I'll meet you in the bathroom in 5 minutes," and grabs at my groin. I lost it and shoved the dude. Got fired immediately. So a customer assaulted you and you got fired for defending yourself? What the heck? I can only imagine the delirious giggling of the employment lawyer you took upon hearing your case. And in case I'm not being clear, I am in no way implying that he was laughing at you, just at the obscenely large amount of money he was going to sue someone for. I didn't end up going to a lawyer. I was super young at the time, 16, and completely inexperienced with all that kind of stuff. I wish that I did. Story 5. I used to work at a pizza place in a small town when I was a teenager. One night, I took a phone order from some idiot woman. It went like this. Me: "Thank you for calling. Pizza place. May I take your order?" Lady: "Yes, I'd like a large pizza. Half pepperoni, half sausage, and half black olives." Me: "Okay, did you want the toppings combined or separated?" Lady: "No, I want half pepperoni, half sausage, and half black olives." Me: "Okay, so you want 1/3 pepperoni, 1/3 sausage, and 1/3 black olives?" Lady: "No, I want half pepperoni, half sausage, and half black olives." Me: "I understand the toppings you want, but I'm not understanding how you want us to put the toppings on your pizza. Do you want them separated by thirds, combined together, or do you mean put half the amount that we usually put on?" Lady: "What's so hard to understand? I want half pepperoni, half sausage, and half black olives." Me: "Lady, there's only 2 halves to a pizza." Lady: "I want to speak to your manager." I got fired on the spot. It was easier for the manager to just hire another person than it was to lose a customer in a small town. Oh, and the lady wanted the toppings divided into thirds. She told the manager the same thing and he just went with her math. The jerk also got it for free. That seemed like a really stupid thing to be fired for. It was just a misunderstanding. It's not like you called her stupid. It's freaking ignorant and encourages other people's ignorance. As a service employee, you were just trying to make sure the customer was getting exactly what she wanted. It's not your fault she was too dumb to know what exactly she wanted. Story 6. I was a stockroom assistant at a well-known fashion chain in the UK and US. I didn't go off on a customer, but I bloody well wish I did now. I happened to be behind tills changing hanger boxes when a customer exploded at the trainee cashier, demanding to know where her order was. She was screaming her head off at how it was unacceptable I paid extra and how she made a specific detour to collect her package. She had ordered a jacket in another branch and had paid for next day delivery to the store I worked in. Customers aren't supposed to come collect their orders until they get an email saying their order is ready to collect. The poor cashier had just started last week and was basically cowering for dear life. I took over and asked to see her email, which she explained she doesn't need because she paid extra, so her package must be here. After 10 minutes of me trying to explain why her package isn't ready to collect, and her trying to challenge Krakatoa, she stormed off shouting that she'd be having words with the guy who owns our company. I hand back to the cashier and carry on with my day. The next day, I was prepping our delivery and I got called for a meeting with the store manager. I was told I'm being let go for gross misconduct, specifically being unhelpful and challenging to customers. It turned out the customer was a journalist for the Daily Mail and she called our head of company, who she did indeed know personally, and got me fired specifically. I would email her employer and explain that she just got you fired, and it turns out she was acting like a jerk. Unfortunately, with her employer being the Daily Mail, they'd probably give her a raise and get her to write an article with the headline like, "Why do rich people have to wait ever in life?" Story 7. I worked as a server at an upscale country club and had these two gentlemen come in for lunch. One ordered and the other said, "I'll have exactly the same thing." So I confirmed that's what he wanted and he replied, "That's what I said, right?" I bring out their lunch and the second guy complains and starts getting rude with me because his lunch has onions on it. So I say, "Sir, you said you wanted the exact same thing, but I can have the chef make you another one." So he says, "Listen to me, you little effing punk. I know what I said and I never said I wanted onions." So I reply, "If you ever speak to me like that again, you and I are going to step outside and work this out." He pisses and moans to see the manager, who unbeknownst to me is sitting at the table right behind these guys having a meeting with another member. She turns around and tells the guy, "After the way you talked to my employee, I should have let him. How about you both apologize and move on?" I didn't get fired, but thought I should share a story where a manager actually stands up for an employee. In hindsight, she probably should have fired me because threatening violence on someone probably wasn't the best idea. Oh well, when you're 19, you think you're invincible. Managers with spines are way too uncommon. You don't even have to be a jerk, just be honest. "Look, sir, you misspoke. It isn't what you wanted, so we'll make it again for you. But in the future, be sure you order what you actually want. This whole bend over backwards and crap on your own employees is silly these days." Country clubs are also different beasts. There's a decorum, dress code, code of conduct. If a diner, member, or guest is acting like this and behaving beneath the club, you can be sure there will be some sort of chastising allowed. Story 8. A woman came into a charity shop and complained about every single item loudly to the 10 or so customers in there. Stuff along the lines of, "This is all crap, who pays for this?" Like we're some boutique with clothes from the back of a van. She clearly didn't understand how rarely new clothes are donated. Then she got in my face about it. I was so angry with her for chasing away the people that came in that I lost my cool. There was nobody left except her since she had just ranted them into leaving. I told her to get out and I didn't give a crap about the clothes or her opinions. She screams her way out of the shop, broadcasting it to everyone on the street. She came back once the manager was off their break and complained again, so I lost my job fairly soon after. I can't blame them. I'd have done the same. Story 9. I didn't get fired, but I was written up and yelled at by management. It was the reason I quit a week later. I am in my early 40s. For fun, I took a part-time job at a Legoland Discovery Center. I love Lego and love kids. It was a blast most of the time. However, at Legoland, employees build their name tags out of Lego bricks and attach minifigs. Kids who visit can trade minifigs with employees. The rule is that we have to trade, because it's fun for the kids. Great. The only problem is that the center I worked at didn't supply any good minifigs. We just built our own from the Build-A-Fig buckets. I worked in the photo and entertainment departments and noticed that lots of our guests would bring in their extra minifigs looking to trade, but were disappointed by the selection. So I began to buy tons of the mystery minifigs and had a large collection of my own at home. Each weekend, I put a bunch in my pockets and put them out on my name tag throughout the day so that I could trade. I liked having Ninjago or Simpsons or whatever. I wanted the kids to leave happy about their trade and feeling like they got something special. Most weeks, I spent $75 or more on minifigs for trading. On May the 4th, I pulled out my personal Star Wars minifigs because I knew they would be getting a lot of Star Wars fans that day. I had Vader, many stormtroopers, and others. This woman came in with a 3-year-old girl and insisted that I give her my stormtrooper. She didn't have anything to trade, but I smiled and gave it to her. Then, the mom went and took a minifigs piece from the build tables and made her daughter trade with me for my Vader. I traded, but was irritated because I only trade my personal ones once per kid. There were lots of employees to trade with. The mom just wanted her kid to have my nice ones. The lady goes on to another area and in comes a group of likely Star Wars fans. One of the girls had a Ninjago minifig in her hand that she had brought from home. She was looking for someone to trade with and was headed over to my section. I put Admiral Akbar, a fairly rare one that you can only get from the X-Wing fighter build set, on my tag along with Leia, excited, thinking that I was going to make their day. In swoops the lady who demands that I trade all of my figures to her kid, who has 3 minifig pieces. I politely refuse and suggest that she asks the employee a couple of feet away, since we had previously traded twice already. She got very angry and began screaming at me because she had gone around the center and no one else had anything good. My manager came over and made me give her all of my minifigs, even the ones I still had in my pockets. I was written up for refusing to trade and not caring about the guest experience. I was so pissed because I cared very much about the guest experience, not the pushy parent experience, but the experience of the kid who just loves Lego. And that's why I spent so much of my own money to make sure they left with something cool in their pockets. You should have just taken yours back from them and left. Screw that woman. Some people just want to ruin things for everyone. I couldn't take them back because any Lego bricks brought in by an employee are presumed to be company property. I had no problem with that because I planned to give them all away to guests anyway. Most of the kids were part of school field trips, meaning not much money for the gift shop and Lego products are pricey. I just wanted kids who were super hyped about it to have something cool to take home. Again, it was a minimum wage job and not my primary source of income. I just wanted to play with the kids. Mine are grown, and randomly asking people if I can play with their kids doesn't go over well, even as a middle-aged woman. But it wasn't worth having a 20-year-old manager in my face yelling at me. My daughter is older than her, and it took everything I had not to tell her to go to her room. Legoland didn't deserve you anyways, OP. Story 10. I had a customer that for at least a year came into our store and was a master tactician in getting free goods by making up complaints against our staff. He would do all sorts of maneuvers, like wanting products he knew we didn't carry to make up complaints about our staff, to even complaining that he had been charged incorrectly. If this guy was in the store, good luck if you were another customer. He would suck up all of the oxygen in the place and demand service from multiple people at the same time. He got reduced prices and free merchandise and tons of coupons for his efforts. My boss would never challenge this guy or protect his own staff from being exposed to losing their job because of a customer who would happily see a member of our crew fired so he could get $5 off his next purchase. My boss wasn't entirely at fault, since this was a giant corporation and he was merely towing the fabled "the customer is always right" mantra. I was already planning on leaving for a better opportunity and was going to give a notice of resignation one week when this customer started giving me an incredibly difficult time about an issue I had nothing to do with and couldn't help him with. It was extremely busy and he was holding everyone up with his crap. I made a quick value judgment, realized I was already out the door, and the only thing I was still there to do was to honor my appropriate resignation notice. I had no designs of ever working for this horrible company or any company like it ever again. I found myself in a unique situation and wasn't going to let the opportunity pass. This guy had made life difficult for all of us for a long time. Payback time. I cut this guy off mid-sentence and just went off on him in front of a number of customers and part of our staff. I told him he was nothing more than a cheapskate grifter and told him I would no longer recognize him as a living, breathing member of our species. Then I told him to go screw himself. The look on his face was so beautiful. The entire store fell into silence, and I just stared him down. He asked to speak to my manager, and I doubled down by talking over his head, inviting the customer behind him to elbow up to the counter. I apologized to the new customer about the bad behavior of the guy who, at this point, had steam coming out of his ears. Eventually, when he realized he was getting nowhere waiting on me, he stormed off to find a manager. I finished my shift. I came back the following day, was intercepted by a corporate manager I had rarely seen, taken upstairs, and got lectured. I interrupted the scolding, revealed my intentions to leave this place, and quit right there. I got a lot of high fives from the other members of the staff on my way out the door. As a customer, I wonder if it helps anyone by complaining about another customer who's like that. I've been in lines where it should have been done in 3 to 5 minutes, but because of a customer issue, it took a really long time. Oh my god, yes. When a bad apple hears complaining from a peer customer, they usually cut out whatever they're doing. So many people just see retail workers as a means to an end and not really a human being. But if another customer starts in on them, it is a huge wake-up call. This has happened on several occasions and it has always worked. Story 11. Not me, but my mother. She was working at an upscale cocktail lounge in Arlington, Virginia, just out of college. Fancy place. All DC businessmen. It was common for large groups of men to come in and get absolutely wasted. One night, a guy decided after a few cocktails that it would be hilarious to untie the wrap skirt that was part of her uniform. Bad idea. My mother was furious and dumped an entire tray of martinis on his head. She was promptly fired, but still thinks it was worth it. Not worth it. She shouldn't have been fired. Not only was she fired, the owner docked her pay to dry clean the guy's suit. Gotta love the 70s. Good on your mother for sticking up for herself. From the looks of the outcome, she probably wouldn't have gotten any justice otherwise. Story 12. I cleaned cars for a rental company. One day, a customer came in already in a very bad mood for whatever reason. He saw me standing at the counter, and apparently this offended him to the point that he began to yell at me. Long story short, I yelled back at him. Nothing came of it for 2 months until I was fired without warning. The district manager who fired me said that even though everyone in the company who reviewed all of the evidence pertaining to the incident decided I was well within my rights as an employee to yell at the dude, they had to fire me because he was some big shot at a company that had a very lucrative contract with my employer, and he had threatened to drop the contract unless they fired me. I don't understand these vendettas to have someone fired, especially after 2 months. The guy was a failure as a human being. Yeah, he was a jerk. I shouldn't have done what I did, but it wasn't really fair. Story 13. Fired, quit, it's a gray area. I worked in the rewards call center for a casino in my youth. People would call in and book rooms or show tickets with their reward points. Naturally, everyone calling for a free room wants it on a weekend or major holiday, and that just wasn't available. A lady called to get a free night in the top end suite on Valentine's Day with 2 days' notice, and lost it when I told her no. She said she spends so much money and we don't even care enough to reward her loyalty, and even began attacking me personally. I just couldn't do it anymore. I calmly explained to her that I see you spend about $20 an hour in the casino. Yeah, we really don't care about you. You could never come back and no one would notice. You need to start betting more than your entire family will ever be worth before we actually start caring if you come back or not. I obliged her request to speak with my supervisor and started packing my things. Story 14. This didn't happen to me, but I witnessed it. A friend of mine used to work in a pizza place. I'd hang out in the lobby playing their Pac-Man machine. Yeah, it was a long time ago. Anyway, my friend is taking orders when a guy storms in screaming about wrong toppings. He removes the pie from the box and frisbees it into my friend's face. My 2-time Detroit Golden Gloves champion friend. What followed was the worst beating I've ever seen one man take. My friend lost his job and got jail time out of it. I bet the guy who threw the pizza never did it again, and probably treated people in his day-to-day life a lot better afterwards. Nah, he told himself that the employee was an idiot and still believes he was the victim to this day. Hey, throwing a pizza should count as assault, too. Maybe if your friend would have just decked the guy once instead of beating the snot out of him, they could have called it even. Story 15. I was working at Blockbuster. Yes, I'm old. While 17 and in high school, a middle-aged guy came in, and instead of using the drop slot to return his movie, he casually tossed it across the counter, and it hit a register hard enough to pop the case open. The people working the registers, myself included, kept an eye on him because our store was a hot spot for kids to come in without adult supervision to mess things up. He chose a few movies, walked up to the front of my line, and waited for me to help him. I got his information up on screen and let him know we couldn't rent the movies he wanted unless he paid his late fee of $6. He flew off the handle, reached over the counter and grabbed my shirt, threatening to have me fired. I punched him in the face, trying to protect myself, and chased him out into the parking lot. When I came back in, my manager took me into the back room, let me clean myself up, and told me they had a zero-tolerance policy for altercations in the store and fired me. On my way out, there were customers that actually shook my hand and told me they would have done the same thing. That job was stupid anyways, so I was glad to be gone from there. One of the many reasons why Blockbuster went down hard. Story 16. I saw this happen. I worked at a Burger King many years ago. I was working the drive-thru register, which was close enough to the front registers that I could hear conversations. One of my coworkers was taking an order from a lady who kept asking how much her total was, and then canceling food on it and changing her mind. I guess she was trying to keep under a certain dollar amount. Well, at the Burger King I worked at, any canceled food on an order needed a manager's password, thanks to one punk who stole money by putting in someone's order, telling them the total, and then canceling out the order and pocketing the money. So the manager had to come by 3 or 4 times at that point. This was during dinner time, mind you, so there was a line of customers out the door waiting to order. Finally, my coworker pulled out a pad of paper and a calculator. He started writing this woman's order down and totaling it out by hand. The woman asked him why he was doing that, and he told her, "When you make up your mind about what you want, then I'll put it in the register." This pissed off the lady, so she grabbed the notebook and tried to hit my coworker with it. He snatched it back from her and told her, "Get the F out." My manager was only going to write him up for it since she agreed that the lady absolutely deserved it, but my manager had to follow company policy. He already had 2 write-ups on file, so she had to fire him. That's a really common shoplifting technique. The aim is to get the cashier confused so you end up with more than what you paid for. Yep, we actually had to ban a lady when I worked at McDonald's because she would do this constantly, then complain that we forgot a meal and would get it for free. Your coworker used great creative problem solving to deal with a terrible customer, stopped a shoplifter, and still got fired for it. Despite the 2 prior write-ups, it sounded like you guys lost a decent employee. Story 17. I lost my position at a vet clinic. The story goes like this. A woman brought in her 5-year-old dog that had diarrhea for the past week and was untreated for it. She was tired of the dog messing in the house, so instead of having the dog treated for the condition, she decided she would rather just have the dog put down. I proceeded to call her a dumb B-word while explaining to her the responsibilities that are involved when you decide you want to have a pet. I was fired. I never looked back. But you fulfilled your duty of keeping the animal alive, so you are still a winner. That is true. The woman gave the dog up, and I found out he was adopted by newlyweds. Story 18. I was blacklisted from Sonic Drive-In for standing up for myself. The store in Oak Hill was shut down and everyone fired because the manager was busted for selling drugs out of the trunk of his car. I was one of the dream team of hand-picked Sonic employees selected from around the city to bring the store back up to speed. Our new manager had the initials JT, and he was very proud of the fact that he came from a 5-star fine dining restaurant manager, and this was his first fast food experience. He was strict, and that is okay. We were expected to be perfect, but he had a temper. One day he pulls in, tires squealing, and as soon as he hits the front door, he's screaming and cussing. I'm trying to take orders while releasing the talk button as he's cussing at the employees, like reverse censoring. When I finish taking the order and turn around to see what the issue was, I notice the other car hop run to the back, crying. He turns to me and says, "And you little crap." This guy is 5'4" and I'm 6 feet, and in roller skates. I roll over to him, stop a bare inch away, and in a strong, clear voice I say, "Excuse me, sir. I am a human being, and when you speak to me, it will be with decency and respect. Do you understand?" To which he replies, "Give me your apron." So I walk out and go directly to the home office and talk to one of the executives, the son of the owner. I relay how I love my job, how I had worked for 9 different Sonics, won multiple awards over the last decade, and had been invited to a VIP movie premiere. I was also featured in the news with his father, the owner. I told him I could no longer work with JT for creating a hostile work environment and asked to be reassigned back to my store where I had been working. I was told he would call, so he called. Turns out, JT had sold his restaurant as part of a messy divorce and invested several $1,000,000 into the Austin Sonics Association of Franchise Owners, becoming a full partner and part owner of almost every Sonic in the city. He had me blacklisted. I can no longer work for Sonic. I tried again to get a job several years later, but I was told they still couldn't hire me. Strong power play. Unfortunately, he was just in a better position. At least you keep your dignity. In roller skates, no less. Sonic lost an employee who genuinely enjoyed working for their company. I hope you went on to work for another company who actually appreciates your work ethic. Story 19. My sister was the manager of a women's clothing store. At the time, she was dealing with some personal issues regarding depression and anxiety, so she wasn't in the greatest state of mind to begin with. A customer came in with a pair of pants that had ripped along the inner thigh seams, which were well past the return period and had clearly been worn and washed. The customer, who was a larger woman, went off on a sales associate stating she'd only tried the pants on, and that caused the seams to rip and she wanted a refund. She brought the associate to tears with her ranting and finally demanded the manager, my sister. Enter my sis, and the customer starts yelling at her too. Sis promptly tells the customer that her pants split because she was a fat ass. she wouldn't get a refund, and to take her fat ass out of the store and never come back. Sis then went in the back, called her boss, and quit before she could be fired. Her boss actually was willing to let her stay, but she chose to leave anyway until she could get her depression issues under control. It took a solid year, but she's much happier and healthier now. One thing you said here is key. She wasn't in the greatest state of mind to begin with. Every customer and company needs to get it through their heads that service people aren't automatons who power down at the end of the night. Unless a company is going to provide sick leave for this stuff, then employees aren't always going to have the best emotional resilience to take abuse every day, and they shouldn't have to. I'm really glad your sister's situation has improved, and I hope it continues to do so. Thank you very much for this. That was an incredibly difficult time for her, and she just couldn't deal with the stress anymore. She has since changed careers and is much happier. Thank you so much for watching and/or listening all the way to the end. If you enjoyed these stories, please leave a like and subscribe. If you have a similar story that you would like to share, please leave it down in the comments below. For more videos like this one right now, please stop by our channel. Thanks again, and see you next time.